Hi, it's attorney Jamie Miller, and welcome to another edition of the Miller Law Chronicles podcast. Today, we're going to have a special guest in Benji Cohn. Benji is going to focus on our clients that have challenged credit and how he can help people get that home that they've always dreamed of. He's going to take the time and he's going to be very patient with all of our clients and help them reach their goal of buying a home. One of the big questions that we get after somebody files bankruptcy is, am I going to purchase that home? And as you'll see from the podcast today, Benji is going to help you with that. And the answer is yes. Even after bankruptcy, you can purchase that home that you've always wanted. I really appreciate you listening to the Miller Law Chronicles podcast week after week. If you've liked our podcast, awesome. Go to your favorite podcast location, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Follow us and like us. By doing that, it's going to allow us to continue to bring you this great content that we're bringing week to week. Really want to thank Benji for spending the time with us, and I know you're going to find this podcast very valuable. Thank you so much for listening in. Hello and welcome in. This is attorney Jamie Miller, and I'm excited to welcome you to another edition of the Miller Law Chronicles podcast. Today we're going to talk about a very important topic in buying real estate for those that may have challenges, either challenge credit or other issues that's making it really difficult or challenging to find that dream home. And I'm excited that I have a good friend of mine in Benji Cohn, who's joining us for the podcast. Benji has a great deal of experience in selling real estate. He's been doing this for 5 years or so. He's a native of Milwaukee and has helped dozens of clients turn their dream home ownership into reality, those that have had challenges and those that have not. But Ben has already sold over $30 million in real estate over the last 5 years. He's done it from worked with eager first-time home buyers who are looking to meet their dreams or seasoned investors. His background in the world of investment properties and interior design offer his clients a really unique experience, oftentimes helping them unlock untapped equity in their home. His educational approach empowers his clients to feel confident, informed, and supported throughout the entire process. And more importantly, or most importantly, is that Benji is really willing to work with people that have challenges and spend the time with them to explain the process and help them navigate what sometimes can be the complex process of purchasing real estate and purchasing that dream home. All that being said, Benji, welcome aboard to this podcast. I really appreciate you joining us. I hope you're having a good day.
Thank you. Thank you for including me. Excited to be part of the conversation. And thanks for that nice introduction.
Yes, I've known you for a long time, and I've known your entrepreneurial kind of attitude and desire to help people. Everything you've done in your young career has really been geared towards being a people person and helping individuals through challenging times and to achieve their goals. Tell us a little bit about your journey getting from, being a young entrepreneur to where you're at today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say I was really fortunate to have benefited from internships in high school. I wish more high schools would have that. I was able to really get a feel for the business, know that it was something I wanted to do. Continued on summer breaks in college, working for a local real estate team. Ended up joining that team for about 3 years post-graduation. Learned an unbelievable amount, loved it, and ultimately decided I wanted to be able to customize services for clients a little further and branched out on my own. But prior to joining the team, I actually worked for We Buy Ugly Houses for about a year. That's kind of where I learned a lot about the ins and outs of properties, repairs that may or may not need to happen, learned an unbelievable amount. And that's kind of what led me to where I am today. And it's kind of compiling all of that, the little bit of interior design knowledge and repairs and ultimate just market expertise.
And it's interesting that you worked for We Buy Ugly Houses, and I can imagine that had to be one of the most challenging employment experiences. And what did you take from that experience that really kind of got you to where you are today?
That's a really good question. A lot of that we were dealing with, difficult situations, whether it's inherited properties, a lot of hoarder houses or fire damage. And a lot of these people are in tough situations. And for a lot of them, we are the solution. For many, we weren't. We weren't able to get them the dollars that they needed, and being able to switch more from the kind of that wholesale side to the retail side now, being able to get people into homes, being able to get them from A to B is part of what I enjoy, the creative solutions.
Right. And it's probably those challenges that you've seen people have that's given you the empathy and the compassion that you need to really help people today.
Absolutely. I pull together from contractors I'm leveraging to the team I pull together. We're doing everything we can to get our clients to the best spot.
Which is really important, and that runs really parallel with what we do here at Miller and Miller in our bankruptcy world. And we have this philosophy, and I know that you've dealt with people in the past that may have filed bankruptcy or have dealt with that, but the important thing that we do here is filing bankruptcy for someone who's financially stressed is kind of the means to the end. But just filing the bankruptcy for people is not really what our passion is. It's not my why. My why is to really help them go from the struggles of having financial problems, of being in debt, to get them to a point where they have that 720 credit score. And we set that goal for 720 because we want to give people that goal, that future, that hope when they file bankruptcy, that they know that once they go through our process, once they do our credit restoration program, we put them in the 7 steps to 720 restoration program. After the bankruptcy is done, we'll go to their credit report and make sure that their credit report properly reflects that their debts have been wiped out. And we set them on that path to get them to a 720 credit score. Now, once we get them to the 720 credit score, it opens the door for them to get reasonable interest on a car loan or reasonable interest on a mortgage loan or a conventional mortgage loan. But tell me a little bit in your experience about people that may have had challenged credit and how you've helped them get into a home and how that works from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I do think they're absolutely kind of parallel paths. A lot of times it sounds like you're setting people up well in advance, and there's a timeline and a process and steps that we follow. And it's really pretty similar with this. I have conversations with people sometimes years before they're ready to buy. And it's a matter of getting the right people involved. So you're helping with credit repair programs. That's something that I can connect people with for getting them set up on listing alerts, start seeing what the market's doing, get a feel for it so you know realistically where your budget may land. The homes that we're liking are in this range. What do we need to do to get there? And it's a matter of creating the roadmap to get them where they want to be.
And it's about setting realistic expectations and helping them understand, what's reasonable, what they can afford, what the time expectations are. And tell me, have you had any, specific experiences, success stories with clients where maybe it's been a year journey with you or 18 months and that you've been able to deliver that dream house to them down at some point down the path?
Yeah, absolutely. There's one actually, a really nice buyer from earlier this year that comes to mind. And I would say they had maybe wanted to purchase for 10 plus years, had some credit repair issues they needed to work through. I was able to connect them with a lender, look at what needs to happen. There were, I think, some small credit card bills that got paid off, little things that we were able to kind of plan for. And ultimately, yeah, we were able to find the perfect house. We closed in a matter of weeks and they were feeling good about it. They knew what they were doing. They knew where their dollars were going. And that's very much how I work, like educationally. I want them to have all the cards on the table. Let's lay it all out. Let's look at the cards in your hand, what you have to play with, and how we can leverage that.
Yeah, and we all know kind of what's going on in the market. Even though interest rates are still high, it still is a seller's market. And if somebody's coming to you today, what are the important things that a potential buyer needs to get in order before, they're even ready to submit an offer on a house?
Yeah, good question. Really, it's important to have a pre approval letter or a proof of funds from a lender, something that you're comfortable with. Sometimes we see pre approvals for a number where the buyer's like, listen, they pre approved me for 300. I'm not going over 225. So making sure that not only do you have a pre approval, but you've talked through with that lender. What are your closing costs? What is my total monthly payment going to be once you factor in taxes and insurance? Like, let's look holistically and get the full picture of what that's going to look like.
And what about like documentation, paperwork? What should somebody have that you're aware of before they even open the door and go talk to that lender?
Yeah, before talking to the lender, you're saying?
Yeah, yeah,
The lender I know is going to ask for a handful of documents, probably your last year's tax documents, maybe pay stubs. They'll likely do a credit check and they're looking at debt to income. That's one of course, credit is important when looking at a mortgage, but one of the things they really focus on is your debt to income.
right. And what about people often ask, and I know as they're going through the process, their big concern is how much money do I need to put down? And so tell me a little bit about that conversation that you have with a first time home buyer.
Absolutely. Also a good question. So there's a huge misconception, a myth that 20% down, 20% down, you need 20% down. That just isn't the case. Obviously, the more you put down, the lower your payments will be. You can sometimes avoid mortgage insurance. So there are benefits to putting more down. The national average, I believe, is 12% for a down payment. And you can actually do as little as 3% down with an FHA loan. You do need to qualify for that. That's something a lender could help you explore, but you could put as little as 3% down.
And if you're putting 3% down, I hear about, I know a little bit about mortgage insurance. Tell us a little bit about what your understanding of mortgage insurance and what a potential buyer should think about there.
Yeah, and that's a good conversation with the lender. But my understanding is until you get to, I believe, 20% loan to value ratio, there's an additional monthly fee that is basically collected to protect the lender because it's a higher risk. They have, more equity in it than you do. Once you get to that 20%, it, I believe, is automatically dropped, or I think at that 2 year mark. But again, I'd want to confirm with one of my lender partners.
Okay. And then if someone's interested in purchasing a home and they reach out to you and say, Benji, I'm interested in purchasing my first home, you'll sit down with them and tell me a little bit about what that first conversation goes like and kind of walk through that about what they can expect.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, it's very exciting to be looking at homes. It's a big step, it's a huge milestone, no matter where you are in life and what you're buying. We're going to have a consult. We could meet for coffee, tea, whatever works, and just get to know each other and talk about your goals. What's your timeline? What's your motivation? Why do you want to buy? Understanding your situation financially, familially, professionally, whatever it may be, and talking through a little bit about the market, as I call it, market of the moment. This is based on the price point, the property type, the areas we're looking in. This is what the market's doing right now. Are we seeing multiple offers? Are things sitting a little bit? Is there negotiating room? Talking a little bit about that, talking about some of the creative strategies I'm able to employ that protect my clients, but also can help them prevail in a competitive offer situation. We'll talk about how I serve my clients, kind of what they have access to. As I mentioned, my role with We Buy Ugly Houses, I've been very intentional about building what I call my 5-star vendor database, and it's the best of the best contractors. So I've worked hard. It's not just the big names you Google. A lot of them are smaller, independently owned companies that are quite a bit more affordable, but also just as reliable and do just as good work. So being able to have access to my contractor list and the knowledge that I have walking through properties, like, hey, if you do new light fixtures and new hardware in this kitchen for $500, it's going to make such a huge impact. So having these conversations and just really getting them set up. At the end of the meeting, ask any questions. We're going to go through the buyer's roadmap. This is kind of the order of operations. This is what you can expect. These are important terms to know. And really, at the end of our meeting, it's next steps. So that's where I'm probably going to connect you with a couple of lenders, send you some local lender referrals that all serve my clients at a high level. I'll probably get your listing alert set up. So that's where you can start seeing the most up-to-date information, new listings, coming soon listings, price reductions. And I have buyers set up who are getting listing alerts regularly, who we know they're not buying for a year, but they find value in it because they're seeing, hey, we keep seeing listings in this pocket. And so we're able to really get everything teed up. You know what to expect in the process. You've talked to a lender, you're seeing listings. Once we have that pre-approval, we're ready to get out there, start looking at homes, writing offers, and finding the one.
And, oftentimes, even in my practice, I'll get the client that comes in and, do I really need a lawyer to help with bankruptcy? And let me throw a similar question to you, especially when considering a first-time home buyer or someone with, financial challenges. What is the added value of having a real estate broker by your side versus, trying to go on all these realtor.com or Zillow and trying to figure out how to do it yourself?
Absolutely. Kind of like you're an expert in your field, you know your market, you have your specialty. That's what you've done for many years and are good at it. Kind of similar here. Have an agent that is working on your behalf, that knows your situation and what you're looking to do. I always say, I'm not here to sell you something, I'm here to find you something. I've worked with buyers for more than 4 years. So not just that, but knowing, hey, I know blank is really important to you in the property. I notice that it doesn't have that. Is this something you'd be willing to add? Vetting properties to professional, negotiating experience. If you're working with an attorney, let's say, to draft an offer, they're going to do a great job protecting you, but they may not have the market knowledge to know what to include in an offer, creative terms that we're able to include, all of that good stuff. When it comes to, let's just say, an inspection report that's 50 pages long, how do you know what you can ask for? How do you know what's really important to get done versus not so much? How do you know the costs for all of this? What do we even really have the ability to ask the seller to repair or give us a credit for? It's all these ins and outs of a deal, just like you're in it every day, structuring these plans and getting people on a good financial path. We've been from start to finish enough to know kind of what flies and what doesn't.
Right. And I think also it's having a realtor that's honest with you, that's willing to say, you know what, this isn't the right neighborhood, this isn't the right house for you, this isn't going to meet your goals. And tell me if you've had, and maybe you can relate a specific story where you've really helped guide people to, you often talk to young families, and buying a home now is very costly, and they may need a 3-bedroom house, but they may be willing to go to the smaller house, but it's really just not the best fit for them at the moment. So I don't know if you have specific situations where you can address that.
Absolutely. I say probably with most, if not all of my buyers, when we start going through properties, I say, I have no problem walking into a property and saying, I think we can find better for the price. I also have no problem saying, this is really a nice opportunity. I would think on it. I'm never going to push somebody into anything, obviously. But yeah, I had a repeat investor client who really had a great deal on an investment property. We were under contract. I think we were 9 days out from closing. And for whatever reason, they said, hey, we want to walk away. I didn't quite know the reasoning. I was able to get them out of the deal, actually with all of their earnest money, security deposit, basically, which was shocking. And I always say, sometimes my job is to get people into homes. Sometimes it's to get them out of homes. I've had, I think, 4 or 5 deals this year that buyers actually walked away from for a variety of reasons. And every single one of them landed in a better spot, and they would agree.
Right. And with still the very hot real estate market, are there seasonal trends that buyers should be thinking about? Maybe you can talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say single family homes are largely dictated by school year, by school calendar, especially in districts that are desirable for families. So usually I'll say around Labor Day, kind of right this time of year, you start to see single family homes taper off a little bit. Condo market tends to run a little bit later. But I would also say that in terms of maybe trying to, if you want to find a deal, so to speak, we found that really between Thanksgiving and New Year's can be a good time to find deals for a variety of reasons. Number one, many people don't want to move in this climate during that time, and I don't blame them. But there's also some opportunity. A lot of the times, the people who are selling at that time need to sell. They have a job transfer, they have another property they're under contract on. They're selling because they need to and tend to be motivated. It's kind of a joke. A lot of realtors actually buy or move in the winter because properties that, if were listed in, let's say, May, would be moving much quicker are sitting a little bit. So that's kind of how seasonality plays into it as well. And also, then, I mean, if you're looking at a duplex or an owner occupied duplex, like when you're closing, when leases expire, making sure that lease expirations are kind of in your summer months in the sweet spot, all of that.
And one of the benefits of hiring a realtor is kind of knowing how to write that offer. And in a competitive marketplace, and I'm hearing many buyers writing offers without inspection contingencies. And I would imagine that with the floods that we've had in the last month or so, that there's been a lot of surprises of some buyers that have elected to write that best offer and not do an inspection contingency and found out that there was issues. And people fill out a property condition report, of course, before they sell their home, and you hope they disclose that. But how are you counseling buyers to write the best offer? And when they're thinking, my gosh, I'm just going to offer no contingencies, no inspection, no financing, you're very competent in warning them of the risks, but maybe you can talk about that for a second.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say it's interesting. And first, that what our brokerage has done is supplied all the agents a really valuable piece of data. They look at the past month, all the accepted offers, all 700 plus Keller Williams agents here had for their buyers. And they're looking at a few key metrics. They're looking at what percent over asking, if over asking, are buyers paying on average. They're looking at what percent are cash versus financed, but also they're looking at what percentage of buyers are waiving their home inspection. And last I looked, it was about 60% of buyers were waiving their inspection, the majority. Now, all the buyers I have worked with this year have all had inspections. Obviously, every situation, every property is a little different, but there are things that we can do that say to the seller, hey, we want to have an inspection. This is a huge purchase. We want to make sure we're not getting into a $50,000 basement issue, but we also want you to know we're not going to be unrealistic. We're not going to nickel and dime you. We're not asking you to fix $150 of little plumbing issues. That stuff we'll take on. There are things we can do in our offer to make that clear. So it gives you as the buyer a competitive advantage if we're in competition, but also keeps you protected. And you're setting a dollar amount. Like, I'll cover the first $2,000 of issues, but beyond that, we want to be able to negotiate. There are things we can do like that. That's something I would say we do a lot of.
And if you, I'm sure in this competitive marketplace that you've had, people writing offers and they know that they're going in and there may be one of four offers that are going in. What are some, tips or tricks of the trade that you've used in that competitive situation to help give buyers a leg up on those types of deals?
Absolutely. I was also going to say a big part of it is communication with the listing agent, because it isn't just the highest offer that wins. It isn't the cleanest offer that wins necessarily. It's understanding, just like my job is to understand the buyer's situation and what they want to do. It's also understanding the seller situation and what's important to them. Do they need a longer closing because of where they're moving? I had a buyer last year who the reason they got their offer accepted, we were against, I think, 10 other offers. There were actually two, I believe, at a higher number than ours. And they didn't love our offer that it was a delayed closing. It was 2 weeks later than the sellers really wanted. And in conversation, like, what's the big deal about the 2 weeks? It was, well, the seller is meticulous in how he keeps his lawn. He doesn't want the grass to sit uncut for 2 weeks, which is fair. I said, okay, if the buyer agrees to cut the grass, can we put the deal together? She's listing agent said, I don't see why not. She came back and said, well, they actually cut it once a week. So they want two cuts. But if your buyer can do two lawn cuts, it's yours. And they got the house beating out other offers at higher numbers over cutting the lawn. I mean, this is
Right.
where finding things out, asking questions, being in constant communication. I mean, I've had offers submitted on my listings, and it's like, you never even picked up the phone to ask me what the seller situation is. What's their preferred closing date? How many offers in hand? Are we way over? I can never know. Agents can never know price or terms of another offer. They're not allowed to disclose that. But I'd say I'm good at asking questions to read between the lines and get as much information that I'm able for my clients. And that's where, again, I work educationally. Let's get all the information and bring it back to you to make the most informed choice.
And you with your years of experience doing this, you're probably able to read tea leaves that are kind of put out there that a buyer who's trying to do it on their own, really couldn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm able to ask the questions that, get us the answers that get you further as a buyer.
And if you are representing a seller and a buyer comes to you that doesn't have a broker and you have multiple offers and the offers are similar, what impact would it have on the seller considering a buyer without a broker versus other similar offers or offers that have brokers?
Good question. I guess first off, my initial concern as a listing agent, if I were representing my seller and a buyer didn't have an agent, would be kind of the education that they've had and the conversations their agent has prepped them for. Are you going to be able to get through an inspection contingency? You don't necessarily have anybody that's there to support you and pull in their contractors. That would be a concern. I mean, really, it's the education. I mean, having somebody that is going to support you and get it to the closing table.
Yeah. And one of the things and the reason we're having this conversation, right now is because I really want to give my clients the resources and the help. And I have a partner in Ash Auto Group that helps our clients buy cars, right out of bankruptcy. And people have this perception that if I file bankruptcy, I'm never going to be able to buy a home or I'm never going to be able to buy a car. But those types of things after a bankruptcy are, a bottleneck or a constraint, but nothing that, we can't overcome. It may not happen today or tomorrow, but that's why I really appreciate having professionals like you, kind of on board and part of our team that we can refer people to the real experts that can help them accomplish their goals. If our listeners and my clients want to reach you, how can they do that? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say usually the best way to reach me is via text or phone. My cell phone is 414-218-6767. I also have Instagram, email. I'm always responsive. So it would be
Yeah.
fun to have the conversation. And whether it's for 6 months or 2 years or 3 years, let's get the conversation started so you know what to expect and get prepared.
Yeah. And so they're going to call you and they're going to have that first conversation with you. And what's your email address?
It's Benji, Benji, Cohn, Cohn, at kw.com. Benji Cohn at kw.com.
And what's it cost to have that initial conversation? And then maybe a little bit about the cost if I hired you to represent me or help me purchase a home.
Yeah, good question. To meet with me, it's free 99.
Okay, exactly. I love
I'm
that.
always happy to have a conversation and be a resource. And when it comes time to start house hunting and looking at properties, We would sign a buyer agency agreement, which is what really lets me work on their behalf. Otherwise, by default, I'm somewhat working as a sub-agent of the seller. So it's the document that really obligates myself to them. I'm strictly working for them. And that does discuss compensation. My professional fees with buyers is 2.4% of the purchase price. There's a small admin fee on there, but almost all times the seller is paying that 2.4%. And again, me working for the buyer, I actually write that into the offer that the seller is going to pay that fee.
That's excellent. And I'm very grateful to you for taking the time to talk to our listeners today. It's been just amazing to me to watch you kind of mature and grow in your professional life, to see where you're at today at a point where you're following your own dream and following your core values of helping people and just doing a great job. I appreciate that so much. And so to our listeners, if you recently filed bankruptcy or you're having credit problems, there's no cost to having that conversation with Benji. You can reach out to him at, what's the phone number again, my friend?
414-218-6767.
Thank you so much. And if you enjoyed this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you go to your favorite podcast location, whether it's Google Podcast or YouTube or Apple, Spotify, wherever it is. Just follow us and like us. It's going to allow us to continue to bring great content like we had having Benji Cohn here today. And Benji, thank you again. Look forward to seeing you in person soon, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Yeah, thank you again for having me. It was a pleasure.